NFL weekend, wild card playoff weekend is here. We are going to break down all 6 games in a little bit more detail today. We've touched on them all this week. You guys kind of already got an idea where I'm leaning in each game. We got Jason here to help me talk it out, figure out who the Eagles will be playing next week when we get to the divisional round. Sixers throw a clunker out there against OKC. I warned you it was a possibility yesterday. If we have time, we'll dive into that a little bit. Trending in the AM starts in 30 seconds.
Gets around in front. And Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. Make sure you do me that favor. You hit the like button. You hit the subscribe button. On the DSM Media YouTube page, we're up to 707 subscribers. Love to continue to grow that number every single day. If we get a couple more subscribers every day, it helps the algorithm, helps build this channel, and the hard work that everybody is putting out there every single day at DSM Media. Make sure you turn the notifications on, too, so you don't miss a moment of it. Good morning, guys. Eagles play Dallas. We'll see. We're going to get into that game in a little bit. So hang in there and enjoy this conversation. I am Phil Stifle. I got Jason Voorhees sitting next to me. Good morning, Jason. Haven't seen you since the Sunday night, Monday morning show. How are we doing today?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Excited to be here. Excited to talk football. I think we got a couple, big games on. I mean, obviously they're all big games. It's playoffs,
Well, yeah.
but a couple big, games that I'm.
I think we got some baggers this weekend. You know what I mean? Some games that people think there's going to be a lot of blowouts on the schedule this weekend, and a lot of a lot of visiting teams win. I think we got some really interesting matchups to dive into, and we're going to get to them in a second. I want to tell you how my day's going, Jason. So I woke up this morning, get into the shower, come out of the shower, and realize that there was no one in my bed. I guess one of the dogs got sick last night. Melissa took the dogs out to the couch to sleep on the couch. Didn't realize it. Went into the kitchen, made my pot of coffee, went over to the stove to make my egg. I make myself an egg every morning. Looked back at the coffee pot, realized for 5 minutes I hadn't turned the coffee pot on. So I turned the coffee pot finally on, and then I look at the stove to see if my egg's done, and I realized I never turned the stove on to cook my egg, so there was still 5 minutes later a raw egg sitting on the stove. So that is how my morning's going so far. So if that's any indication, this show is in for a train wreck today, Jason.
Oh man, no. Maybe you got all of the bad mood.
Well, do you know what today's date is?
Friday the 13th.
Yes, exactly. So that is just start. Friday the 13th in the pizza business, Jason, is one of the worst days of the year. Whenever it happens, because that just means an intense amount of crank phone calls coming in. So we are off to a roaring start here today.
Friday the 13th is fun though.
Yeah, not when you work in the pizza. Not when you work in a takeout phone call driven business.
That's very true.
Okay, not in that sense there. All right, I just wanted to, I thought it'd be fun to just let you know how my morning was going so far today. I didn't normally if I something like that I would have told you before we went on the air, so you knew. You didn't know. I didn't tell you that beforehand. All right, so let's dive into this weekend's games, Jason. We're just going to go right down the schedule in the order that they are being played. Okay. And first off, I got to ask you. Last year they started this, and it could, in theory, depending on who wins this weekend, it could favor us with facing Tampa on a short week. How do you feel about them adding a wild card game on Monday Night Football and in the playoffs giving one team potentially a short rest week? Because I'm not really sure I'm a fan of it in general. Like in theory, like yes, if the Bucks are the worst team, we'll get the Bucks next week on a short week. It could help us out because the Bucks, Bucks Cowboys play on Monday Night Football. But I kind of feel like it gives an unfair advantage in the playoffs.
I mean, you know what? I look at it kind of different, not differently, but I guess it depends on who wins. Because if in the other division game the Giants win, then that's who we're going to face. So I don't think you necessarily will face one of the teams coming out of the Monday night matchup. I think it just kind of worked out that way.
There's an argument to be made, though, that no matter who they have to play, the Bucks or the Cowboys, that they're at a disadvantage going into the divisional round because they're going to get one less day. There's no Monday Night Football next week. It's just this weekend. I kind of felt that way last year and didn't really have a lot of time to talk about it. I just thought I'd, vent for a minute or two. I just think I understand why they do it. It's a money grab for sure. Having a Monday Night Football game, ESPN probably pays buco dollars to get one Monday Night Football game in the wild card round, and the advertising dollars and everything else that goes into it. I understand why. I just don't know if it's necessary and fair to the teams that play it.
Yeah, I mean, generally, I'm a traditionalist, so that part of me would say, I don't like it. I like having just this, the Sunday format, or Saturday, Sunday. Obviously, It's become now, but it used to just be Sunday. I mean, you and I are old enough to remember that.
Absolutely.
Showing our age.
So we got 6 games this weekend, and it starts on Saturday, 4:30, against I'm going to call them the upstart Seattle Seahawks against the San Francisco Brock Purdy 49ers. 49ers are a 10-point favorite. Let's get into this first game here. The odds are I guess hypothetically speaking, if Seattle won this game, we could be facing Seattle, in the divisional round. So, there is a chance that, I guess a very slim chance, but a chance that Seattle could be our opponent. So the Brock Purdy hype train rolls into the playoffs now. I don't buy the Brock Purdy hype. Now, I think they win on Sunday. I think it's a lot closer than a 10-point game, in my opinion. But are you confident if you're a 49ers fan? And my older brother's a big 49ers fan. And I forgot to ask him what his thoughts were. If you're a 49ers fan, are you confident that Brock Purdy could get the job done in the playoffs in general and perform at a confident level this week against Seattle?
I mean, listen, I'm with you. I'm not buying it because I don't think the 49ers with Brock Purdy under center have not faced any stiff competition. What I will say is that I look at this game as an interesting game because it's a divisional opponent.
Exactly.
Seattle is definitely a better team than they've been really, shown to be.
Right.
Offensively, they're actually ranked 9th in the league, which is only right behind the 49ers, who are 8th. Obviously, it's their defense that struggles. But what I will say is that Geno Smith is crazy. That his story is not being talked about more. I know it was early in the year and it's kind of gotten forgotten, but I mean, for what Geno Smith has been able to do this year, especially with the whole Russell Wilson effect, how everyone was obviously pissed off in Seattle that they got rid of him. And it's oh my God, Geno Smith has not missed a beat of where Russell Wilson was, the old Russell Wilson that we knew.
He improved upon last year's Russell Wilson massively.
Yeah, so it's crazy to me. And I'm looking at this game as I'm not saying Seattle is going to win, but what I am saying is there is a chance. And you brought that up.
I think the 10-point line's a little disrespectful. So I just went and I looked. So they faced off in week 2 as their first matchup, and San Francisco won 27-7. The Geno Smith hype train. Geno Smith has gotten more confident as the season goes on. Week 2, he wasn't that person. Also, that week 2 game was the game that Trey Lance got injured in, and they prepared for Trey Lance. Then he gets hurt very early in the game, and Jimmy Garoppolo comes in. The whole game plan changes. The second time they faced off later in the season, it was 21-13, much closer of a game. That was a Brock Purdy start there. I think that game you can learn a lot more. That game, they had Christian McCaffrey at that point. And I think that's the X factor, obviously. I think the Christian McCaffrey trade that the 49ers made, I don't know if it'll be one of the best trades of all time, but it'll be one of the most impactful in-season trades. I think impactful versus great, there's a difference in those terms. It might be the most impactful trade we've seen in the last 20 years. And they had him in that game, and they were still only able to beat the Seahawks by 8 points. Now, I think that's what you're going to see. I think you're going to see a very low-scoring game. You're going to see something in the neighborhood of 21-13, 21-17, where it's going to be the defense of the 49ers and Christian McCaffrey that are going to carry them to a victory. But like you said, you got to give credit to Geno Smith. I mean, almost 4,100 passing yards, 30 touchdowns. Who in their right mind would have been able to predict that those stat lines would have came out of Geno Smith in Seattle this year?
Nobody. I
mean,
mean, and if they did,
weren't we talking about, Jason, before the season started, where DK Metcalf would get traded to because the Seattle Seahawks were going to be tanking this year and selling off, and he was never going to want to play with Geno Smith? And DK Metcalf and Geno Smith put up a hell of a damn year this year.
And Tyler Lockett. Like,
and Tyler Lockett
is one of those guys that kind of I think he's one of the most underrated wide receivers in football because he just puts up numbers every single year. It's like consistent. You look at his and you look at he was like I believe a 6th round pick. He was like drafted late. Or he may have even been a free agent, like one of those undrafted. But anyway, I
get what you're saying. I agree with you on that too.
I think I'm with you. I do think it's going to be kind of a lower scoring game. I don't think it'll be, it might, one team might touch 20 points, but I think it's going to be on the lower end. And I do think that the 49ers are going to try to establish the run because as much as Brock Purdy hype train has been, he's still what we would consider that quote-unquote game manager type quarterback, which is what the 49ers really have had. Like, even Trey Lance, to a certain extent, was a game manager, even though he can run the ball. Jimmy Garoppolo, we've been saying that for years that he's a game manager. And I know my counterpart, Aaron, has kind of thrown comparisons to Tom Brady, and I don't think he's trying to say that Brock Purdy is Tom Brady. He's saying that the situation's similar in that Purdy has come in, for a quarterback that's kind of a known commodity and kind of went on one of those runs. Now, obviously, different circumstances, but I do think there is a little bit of intrigue in it because, obviously it makes you want to watch because it's like this guy, Brock Purdy, everyone's talking about him. But, like, I'd like to see what I will believe if he's able to be a good team. Then I might start saying, okay, maybe this guy's legit. But until then, I can't just say, Brock Purdy's great.
I mean, there's people talking about should the 49ers build around Brock Purdy instead of Trey Lance now. You know what I mean? It's crazy, but I think the 49ers, excuse me, everybody talked about Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, and they could win without Jalen Hurts because he's a system quarterback and the Eagles have a system. And we obviously seen this at the end of the season that that's not the case. I think the 49ers are the epitome of a system team. They've got a great system, a great coach. They have a great GM as well, and I think they prove that if you have a great system and a great culture, it's a plug and play, team and league. And I think that goes also, though, to when you have a great defense and a great system on offense, you can plug and play. If that defense wasn't what it was or what it is, you might not be able to rely on somebody like Brock Purdy to carry your team down the stretch.
I mean, you're 100% spot on. I'm looking at their record. So 49ers are 8-1 at home. So obviously this is a home game for them. Big advantage. But they've won 10 in a row. So the pessimist in me is thinking, okay, well, when does that run end? Mm-hmm. The problem with winning streaks in the regular season comes down to sooner or later it's a matter of numbers. Like, when is their luck going to run out? And I'm not saying that like Seattle's like this great team, but Seattle's a divisional opponent. We all know in the NFL, divisional opponents and games are always tougher.
And what's the other key thing about it that we talked about it, wanting to lose that Dallas game in case we face Dallas in the playoffs, the Eagles, because what is it? Very hard to do. Beat a team 3 times. They've already beaten Seattle twice. All right. With that all being said, final prediction for. I'm not writing these down. If somebody wants,
I got it.
They can. But if you got to put a prediction, actually, now that I say that, now I want to at least write mine. I'm going to write mine down just so I have them for a tweet or something later. Nobody can call me out for being, liar or something. I don't even have a piece of scratch paper. There we go. What is your prediction for this game? Because I've got one on this game.
Okay, so I do believe it's going to be lower scoring. I'm going to go 49ers 24.
Okay.
Seattle 17. I think it's close.
24-17. Okay. I'm going to keep it from that 21-13 game. I'm just going to make it a little closer, and I'm going to say 49ers win 21-17. So pretty close to the same as you. Just a little lower scoring. But I think that's the way it is. I think Seattle keeps it a game. I almost, maybe into an extent, maybe San Francisco has to make a late score to win, or maybe Seattle gets a late score and then has another chance to win it and then just comes up a little short. Maybe a Bosa sack at the end of the game seals the deal or something like that. But we both got San Francisco in that game, and I think that's a pretty obvious choice. I think the Saturday night game, 8:15, is one of the hardest games to predict unbiasedly because obviously we've got a lot of bias in this game. We got the Justin Herbert-led Los Angeles Chargers traveling to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Doug Peterson's team, who just won that division on the last day of the year. Let's see here. The line is the Chargers are 1.5-point favorites. What are your thoughts on this matchup? What are your thoughts on Doug Peterson getting the Jaguars to the playoffs at his first try? And can the experience of Doug Peterson be enough to win to win this game?
So my heart wants to say that the Jaguars are going to win this game, but I'm looking at it from a perspective of talent,
right?
And I look at the Chargers, and they were like a lot of people's upset. I want to say upset. It wouldn't be an upset. A lot of people in the beginning of the year were saying Chargers were going to be a very good team this year and go far.
There's a lot of Justin Herbert MVP hype before the season.
Exactly, and
I was 100% against. Just so you know, I talked down on the Chargers from day one this year.
So you look at their record, and they're 10-7, which isn't a bad record, but it's like kind of middle of the pack in the AFC. It's not an upper echelon type team. But I'm looking at what the Chargers did down the stretch, and they did get healthy. They have a healthy Keenan Allen finally. Keenan Allen, to me, is one of those wide receivers that's always hurt. When he's healthy,
so is Mike Williams. Their whole entire wide receiver core is like that.
I agree. I think, to me, you got to look at a guy like Austin Eckler, who this year, I mean, you talked about Christian McCaffrey. Austin Eckler is a cheat code himself. Like, absolutely. The guy is insane, and he got better down the stretch. Like, he had some monster games, like, the last few weeks. And same thing with Herbert. Herbert, like, in the beginning of the year, he was like throwing a lot of interceptions, but he kind of rounded it out. And of course, his numbers at the end of the year look really good. He has 4,700 yards passing. Like, but my heart sometimes has to overrule.
It's hard to go.
Because Doug Peterson, what he's done with the Jaguars is amazing. Like,
I don't know if this helps. So week 3, they played each other. Jags and Chargers. And the Jags smoked the Chargers 38-10. I couldn't even remember that, game. And this was before the Chargers got good. This is before the Chargers started, making their, run. I mean, the Chargers have won, or the Jaguars have won, 5 in a row now to close out the season, 6 out of their last 7. That was before that. This is when the Jags were still trying to figure it out. And they were able to beat the Chargers team. Mike Williams only had 1 catch. He probably got hurt in that game. Keenan Allen didn't play in that game, but Austin Eckler did. Thinking about that, does that influence your thoughts? Because right now, even realistically speaking, trying to take my Doug Peterson hype out of the equation, you got the Chargers, who I don't believe in Justin Herbert. He's a really good quarterback. He really is. But he's not in that upper echelon top 5 quarterback group that some people put him in. He can throw the ball around. Mike Williams might not play in this game. So that's a factor to me. West Coast team going to the East Coast. You got the Doug Peterson factor that he's got, not our love of him, but he's got the experience. I kind of lean towards Jacksonville because when you get a game like this, it comes down to quarterback play. And honestly, and realistically speaking, this is not because, well, I've already formed an opinion. I would take to build my team Trevor Lawrence over Justin Herbert at this point. He just seems to have more of that intangible X factor than Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's just a guy that throws the ball really well around the field. He doesn't strike me as a leader. And this game's going to come down to the wire, in my opinion. And if a game's close and it's down to the wire, who do you want? The better leader or the better slinger of the football?
I think a perfect example to me, I would say Justin Herbert is like a Brett Favre. Trevor Lawrence is like an Aaron Rodgers. Trevor Lawrence has that talent where he can he can have an 80% completion percentage. The guy just has that, and he has the leadership. Yes. So I think you're perfectly spot on with your assessment. And you just talked me out of where I was leaning. I was leaning Chargers, but realistically, like this is one, like you said, it could go either way. Mm-hmm. But the Jaguars are at home, so I think you got to go with the home team, and you got to go with, the history.
Jaguars. This will be the last game we break down this show because we're going in order. But yeah, I mean, I think there's the great storyline there. If the Bucs are the Eagles' opponent next week, full circle that. Yeah, I've got the Jaguars beating the Chargers. I've got 31-30 Jacksonville. And this is how I see it playing out. I see it being a gunslinger of a game, both teams back and forth. And I see the Jaguars needing to score to win the game at the end of regulation. And if it was the other way around, say it was Jacksonville was up 30 to, say, 28, and the Chargers had a chance, I don't got that confidence in the Chargers. Do it. Herbert's more than capable. But if a team was down 30 to 28 with 1 minute left, say one timeout, who would you rather have back there? Lawrence with Doug Peterson or Herbert with Staley? I'm taking Jacksonville in that situation at home 10 times out of 10. So that's how I see it playing out. I see those X factors. Look, there was literally like 5, 6, 8 weeks ago, people were calling for Staley to be fired from the Chargers because he wasn't, maybe he was the one holding Justin Herbert back. So I don't understand why all of a sudden people are back on this Chargers hype train that they're just going to, maul through the Jaguars like they're nothing.
So, yeah, I think Jacksonville.
I agree with that 100%. That definitely plays a factor in it 100%. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, so I'm going to go out. I'll give you my prediction. Since you changed my mind, which is what I love about this show, because we can talk, some sense into each other. I'm going to say Jaguars 35, Chargers 31. I do. I think it's going to be a nail biter, and I'm kind of leaning towards what you said. They're going to come back at the end. It's going to be back and forth, but definitely higher scoring because I look at both of these offenses and it's like they can play.
Absolutely.
Put up points.
All right, so then the first game on Sunday, the 1:00 game, can we say it's going to be a boring game? It's Miami Dolphins.
It's a shame.
It's a shame. It's the Miami Dolphins in Buffalo. Another division. We got so many great division rivals in the wild card weekend. It's great. Miami Dolphins, obviously, are without Tua or without Teddy Bridgewater. They're going with Skylar Thompson. They're 13.5-point underdogs. And
Tyreek Hill's banged up, too.
Tyreek Hill is banged up as well. The Dolphins beat them early in the year in a close game. The Bills won a close game late in the year, so we don't have to worry about that beating a team 3 times kind of narrative. Can I say this? And I know a lot of people were all over the Tua hype train, and he was an MVP candidate. I know Aaron was on that. I don't buy the Dolphins as a team. Whether it's Tua, I really actually I think it comes down to Mike McDaniel. Maybe my dislike. I don't like him as a coach. I don't think he's a good coach. I think when they get blown out on Sunday, and I believe it will be a blowout on Sunday, when they get blown out, I kind of feel like Mike McDaniel is a coach that could get fired and be a one and done. I know it's very rare that coaches are one and done, especially playoff coaches, but something about him rubs me the wrong way. I don't think he's got a good pulse on how to run an NFL franchise at this point. You've got a team with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki. You've got a good defense, and you had Tua for a good portion of the year. And the way they handled the Tua situation, first off, just rubbed me the wrong way. But secondly, I feel like they're a fluke 9-8 team. I almost feel like they should be like 7-10 or 6-11. I just don't buy them as a good team. Am I crazy for thinking that? Like the eye test. I look at a lot of things eye test wise, not the analytics or the stats. The eye test is they're just a poorly run team.
See, I got to disagree with you on that because I think Tua is the X factor. I think if Tua is playing in this game, there's a chance that the Dolphins could beat the Bills, and that's not saying that would happen. I'm
Right.
saying Tua is like Jalen Hurts Tua to the Dolphins is like Jalen Hurts to the Eagles. I mean, it's
Okay,
that
fair.
important of
And
a
that's
position.
fair.
And it's that he listen, his numbers were amazing. Yes, but he did have a good wide receiver. So I
But
do
hold on. Can I cut you off for a second? Because I agree with you that Tua to the Dolphins is Jalen to the Eagles. But the Eagles have Nick Sirianni. And yes, we see Nick Sirianni on a daily basis. So maybe because I'm not listening to Mike McDaniel every day, but I have NFL Network on all the time at the pizza shop. And whenever he's talking, they're putting him up on the screen. I don't get that same vibe that the players buy into Mike McDaniel like I do think that the Eagles players buy into Nick Sirianni. Maybe that's because we're in Philly, not Miami, but my eye test says that Nick Sirianni could help carry the Eagles a little bit. Mike McDaniel can't do that to the Dolphins.
Oh, you're on to something because I think a lot of Dolphins fans are complaining about Mike McDaniel. If you look at his play calling, it's not that they don't have good running backs. They don't have star running backs, but they have Jeff Wilson. They've had guys that can run the football.
Right.
And their problem is they go away from the run. They'll run. It's almost like similar to the Eagles, how we bitch, but yet the Eagles still do run the football. Like, whereas the Dolphins just kind of go away from it. And Aaron, I talked to Aaron a lot about it, and he said that like the play calling has been horrible. So I think you're right. I think it is the coach. I guess my only thing is I think if Tua plays in this game, it's a different game. It's going to be a blowout. No doubt it's going to be a blowout. And this Thompson guy, I feel bad because he's getting, his first playoff game, and he's like, he's just not going to do any good. So I think we both agree.
Absolutely.
The game's kind of going to be over before it started. And
right. I'll let you make the first prediction on that game because
I'm going to say 42-10.
Oh, wow. You got even more. I had 38. I've already got some of these scores written down. I got 38-10 written down for this game.
Yeah, I think Josh Allen will go off, and I think the whole Damar Hamlin thing has kind of lifted that team. Buffalo was struggling for a while, like not struggling to the point where they were losing or they were a bad team, but they weren't like winning games like they were earlier in the year. They weren't like dominating, and I think this Damar Hamlin thing has a lot to do with, reinvigorating the team and getting them kind of refocused. Mm-hmm. And you could see it with Josh Allen. Like Josh Allen, when he was on the sideline with Joe Burrow and they were like hugging, and you could just see like what happened to him. And then the fact that now Damar Hamlin's actually out of the hospital and home. Yeah, this team's going to be all lit up. They're going to be hyped. The Bills Mafia.
I agree with all that you said there, but I kind of feel like this is the end. This week will be the last week that the Damar Hamlin situation can help. I think going next week, whoever they play, I think that shit gets real next week.
It wears off. Yeah, I agree.
It wears off after a little while, unless the only way that it doesn't wear off is if he's healthy enough and he can go walk out and like be part. No, not play. He won't play. But if he can be part of the coin flip or something, maybe that helps next week. But this week, as the last week that that emotional lift carries this team. All right, next game. One of the most divisive games I think on the card, like prediction wise, is this Vikings team, 13-4 Vikings against the New York Giants. Vikings are a 3-point favorite in this game, and this is the game that a lot of people are predicting an upset in. More people than not are predicting the Giants to beat the Vikings. And I think there's some extreme Vikings hate going on out there. When you're 13-4, I don't care that you got blown out by the Cowboys, whatever it was, 40-6 or whatever it was. When you win 13 games in the NFL, you're a damn good football team. Every team, you can look at every team's schedule and you can find a game and be like, wow, they're not good because they lost that one game really bad, or they're way better than their record says because they won this one game. You got to look at the whole entire picture. And the Vikings are a really good team. They've got the best wide receiver in football. They've got a good quarterback that when he's on, he's on. Going up against a Giants team that, look, Brian Daboll has had a great season turning this franchise around. Maybe finding something in Daniel Jones. But I don't think the Giants are ready for playoff football yet. There's way too many holes on that team. And I think the hype is getting out of control that the Giants are just going to waltz into Minnesota and just beat them, no questions asked.
Did you like?
And
read
that's
my
that's
mind?
not me because I'm a Giants hater. That has nothing to do with that whatsoever. It's just I buy the Vikings as a good team.
Did you read my mind? Because
No, I know you well enough to know that you would agree with that.
I've been saying all year that the Vikings are being slept on. Like, I get it that Kirk Cousins has bad history in the playoffs. I get all
Right.
that. I get the fact that the Vikings are like consistently poor performers in the playoffs. I get all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But 13-4, dude.
13-4 is 13-4.
To me, any team that employs Justin Jefferson on the field has a chance to beat any team.
Absolutely.
Because Justin Jefferson, what I watch him run routes, I don't think there's a wide receiver in the league right now that's better than him. There isn't. You know, you can name a couple that are, you know, on the level, but like right now, Justin Jefferson is like the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
And the guy can just take over a game himself. Like just by when he gets open, like
because
plays.
The funny thing is, like we always talk about quarterbacks elevating the play of their team. Well, Justin Jefferson elevates Kirk Cousins and the rest of the team. And you could put me or you back there throwing that football. If I throw the ball within a 5-yard radius of Justin Jefferson, he's going to attack that ball and catch it.
Yeah, listen, man, I'll give the Giants credit. The Giants have really tremendously turned their team around. Like Brian Dable is a phenomenal coach.
Agreed.
I love what they did with the offensive line, like a rejuvenated Saquon Barkley. But I look at the Giants, and there's one thing that they miss. We talk about Justin Jefferson being the best wide receiver in the NFL. The Giants have one of the worst wide receiver corps in football. They're horrible. They're awful. And I just can't see a world where the Giants can beat the Vikings in Minnesota in 4:30 is a primetime game, and I just don't see it.
Look, so the Vikings, I think it was week 15 or 16. I'm trying to do the math. Week 15, they beat the Giants 27-24. Kirk Cousins threw for 299. Justin Jefferson had 133 receiving yards with 12 catches and a touchdown. Another huge trade that happened this year in the midseason. T.J. Hawkinson going from Detroit to Minnesota, crazy trade, had 13 catches for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns. Daniel Jones threw for 300 yards in that game, but it wasn't enough because when you've got Justin Jefferson and now T.J. Hawkinson, and that's forgetting about Adam Thielen, who's still – Adam Thielen is in that Tyler Lockett category.
He's
Such
an
an
Robin. Yes.
Yeah, he's a great Robin to the Batman. You know, look, I think it'll be closer than if you hear me talk, you probably think I'm going to say 38-10 or something like that. That's not how I see the game playing out. But I think it's time. And I don't think next week the Vikings will probably face San Francisco in San Francisco, and San Francisco will probably win that game. We'll break that down next week if that's what happens. But this week against this New York Giants team, I talked about it yesterday. Teams getting their first taste of playoff experience. It's great. You know, it's just like the Eagles going last year into Tampa and getting blown out. It doesn't matter. They still got that taste of playoff experience. They learned something in that. That's what the Giants are in right now. The Giants are last year's Eagles in the exceeding expectations, getting to the playoffs, building something, getting that experience and learning. They're just not ready to win a playoff game yet. They still got way too many holes on that team to win a game in the playoffs. That's all that comes down to.
I agree with you.
All right, what's your prediction on this Giants versus Minnesota game?
So I definitely am leaning Minnesota, but I do think it will be a very tight game. I don't think it'll be a super high scoring game, but I'm going to say Vikings 27, Giants 24. I think they win by
the exact same score. What are the odds that it's the exact same score that they had the last game they played? All right, so I'm a little different. I think it'll be late in the fourth quarter, 24-21 Vikings, and then you're going to see Daniel Jones drop back trying to lead a charge and throw a pick six. So I've got Vikings 31, Giants 21, with a late pick six on from the Vikings to make it a double-digit lead. So it'll look like it's a blowout, but realistically speaking, it'll be a closer game.
That's spicy.
What?
That's spicy. I like it.
Yeah, spicy. I like it. All right. Next game on the docket, the Sunday night football game. Now, this is another one of those games, just like the Miami Bills game, that kind of who gives a crap about? Because, again, no Lamar Jackson. It's Cincinnati.
He's definitely out.
Lamar Jackson's out, it seems like. I think their backup quarterback might be out too. He's questionable. Lamar Jackson's listed as doubtful, which means he's not playing. Tyler Huntley is listed as questionable. So you might not even have their top 2 quarterbacks playing in the game. Against Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, Joe Cool. One of my favorite. Honestly, if I had to pick a quarterback to build a franchise around, I may actually take Joe Burrow over Jalen Hurts. And you know how much I love Jalen Hurts. But everything that Jalen Hurts is, so is Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow actually has a better arm than Jalen Hurts. So Joe Burrow is one of my favorite quarterbacks. If I had to get, not just quarterbacks, players in the league, if I had to get a visiting team jersey to wear or rock, it would probably be one of those black and white Cincinnati Bengal Joe Burrow jerseys. I'm all in on Joe Burrow. He is going to win multiple Super Bowls in his career. Going up against a Vikings team that's without Lamar Jackson, that there's plenty of distractions because of Lamar Jackson. There's just no doubt in my mind that the Bengals just absolutely smoked the Ravens this weekend.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate because that would have been a nice matchup to watch.
That would have been a great matchup.
Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. That would be a game that I'd want to be glued to the TV because as much as Lamar Jackson gets a lot of hate, he's fun to watch. And when he does play, it makes Baltimore a viable contender. But I just think if you're down to your third quarterback, I can't see a world. Once again, I feel like it's a broken record, but I just can't see the Ravens competing in this game. I mean, I look at the Bengals and what they've kind of done in their down the stretch here. I mean, you look at their last few games, they've won, I believe. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've won 6 in a row, and they've been all I
actually got them at 7. 8 in a row. 1, 2.
I'm sorry, 8 in a row. Yeah, because I saw that canceled thing. It's
8. They've won their last 8.
They've won their last 8. They've been super hot, and Jamar Chase is finally healthy. Remember, he was hurt for I believe he was out 4 games. T. Higgins was kind of banged up, so they got all their full arsenal of guys. I mean, they have
and they just faced the Ravens last week too. They faced them in the last week of the season and beat them by 11, 27-16.
Yeah, I just think the Bengals got all the firepower. I'm with you. Joe Cool is fun to watch. And I'm going to go Bengals 35, Ravens 13.
I got 35-14 written down here. So we're spot on this morning. So my question is, how much of a distraction also is the Lamar Jackson? I mean, just think about how Lamar Jackson bet on himself, turned down $250 million, has been injured and played poorly this year when he wasn't injured. And on top of all that, they just gave, the linebacker, a huge $100 million deal, which probably hurts what they can offer Lamar Jackson. So he's going to be stuck under the franchise tag. I said yesterday on this show, Jason, agree or disagree, Lamar Jackson will not play his entire career in Baltimore. Within the next 2 years, next year he'll play under the franchise tag. After that, he will not be a Baltimore Raven anymore.
I wouldn't be surprised.
That was my prediction.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets traded to a team that has a lot of picks. Or,
I mean, that would set the Ravens back because they don't have a backup alternative plan. But
he might force his way out because he's not happy. But you're right. He bet on himself. He probably should have taken that money. Not that it,
Sometimes it works when you bet on yourself. Sometimes it doesn't. This time it did not work. But also, he kind of gives me this. He's not quite as bad in my mind, but very similar to Kyler Murray, a me guy that isn't as focused on the team as he is on his own self and profits and stuff like that.
I agree 100%.
All right, we got one final game this weekend, and it's probably the game that'll get the most hate or love in this city. It's the Monday Night Football game. It's Dallas Cowboys against the 8-9 NFC South winning Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady back in the playoffs again. Team that knocked us out against our hated Dallas Cowboys, who just beat up on Minshew a few weeks ago on Christmas Eve, spoiled our Christmas. Let's see the line. The Cowboys on the road are a 2.5-point favorite. Surprised about that a little bit. Oh, man, Jason, I'm really struggling with this game. I really am.
I'm not.
No?
I listen. I know it's like the trendy thing for an Eagles fan to say Dallas is going to lose. I think this game is not even going to be close. I think Tom Brady is a guy that everyone continues to just continue to bet against, and every single time he rises to the occasion and shows that he's still not done. He had, like, numbers wise, he hasn't had his top of the line number season as far as numbers. He did set his own completion record. He broke his own record from last year. He's got a healthy Mike Evans, who, talk about another guy that's just always underrated. Like, I think he's had 10 years in a row. He's the first wide receiver ever to have 10 years in a row of 1,000-yard seasons, which is insane. Wow. Tampa Bay's defense is not bad, and
coming into this year on paper, it was ranked one of the top 3 or 4 defenses in football.
Yeah,
it just didn't live up to that hype. This year.
I agree, and I think you could say that about a lot of their thing. Their offense didn't really live up to the hype, but Tom Brady still ended up with a 90% rating. He had 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and I think come playoff time, that's when Tom Brady shines. I think Dak Prescott is going to throw another pick 6. The guy's just on a roll with that. And I just think I think Dallas is I think Dallas is so, like, they have big heads. They think that they're better than they are.
It's Dallas.
And I think that this is the game where they I'm not going to say it's going to be a blowout, but I think Tampa Bay wins fairly easy. That's my pick. I'm not struggling with it, because a lot of people are saying, oh, I just think that Tom Brady, he has, every time, like, we say he's done, he's not. And it's playoffs. And you know what Tom Brady does in the playoffs. He showed you that every single year. I mean, last year, didn't he almost come back against the Rams? Like, they ended up losing that game, but he brought them back. They were down, like, big, and he brought them back. They tied it, and then the Rams finally won it and won the Super Bowl. So I don't think Tom Brady's done. I think he's pissed off because of the whole thing. I think he went through a lot with the divorce, but he's well past that now, I think, mentally. And I think he's ready to say, look, this is either my going out party or, I'll be back next year.
All right. So I'm kind of torn on this game because, look, the Dallas and the Dak Prescott hate has been insane this year. Not in Philly, I mean across the league, because of the interceptions and them not living up to their hype, which is they're always overhyped. And you know what? And rightfully so. I don't know if you saw the picture I tweeted out yesterday. 4 of the top 5 viewed football games this year in the regular season all had the Cowboys playing in it. That's why they get the hype and the attention they do, because they draw eyes. They draw the most eyes across all things. I think Dak Prescott's a better quarterback than he's being given credit for. He is a very good – he's not top 5, but he's in that 8, 9, 10, 11 range for sure, without a doubt. The problem with Dallas is Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy. I think they're a terrible top 2 in an organization. I think Kellen Moore is already got his foot out the door to get a head coaching job. I think Dan Quinn wants to be a head coach again and deserves, probably rightfully so. I think there's too much in the offices, and I think that's what's holding this team back. I said it from day one that Mike McCarthy was just a placeholder till Sean Payton. Now it looks like Sean Payton might go somewhere else to be a head coach, but as soon as Sean Payton quit or stopped or whatever you want to call what he did, retired from the Saints, I said he will be the next Dallas Cowboys head coach when he was allowed to be. But all that being said, I still think the Cowboys are still a really good team. If I'm going to say that the Vikings are getting disrespected for winning 13 games, shouldn't we be saying the same thing about Dallas? I mean, they did go 12-5. I mean, they smoked the Vikings, a team that we just said are much better than they're getting credit for. All that being said, I still got the Buccaneers winning this game, but I think it's a very close game. And it's either going to come down to Dak throwing a late interception on a charge, or it's going to come down to Tampa Tom having to lead that late charge to get that game-winning touchdown, and the defensive Cowboys just can't stop Tom Brady. I still think it has to be a close game, or should be a close game. I just think that the people that are saying that the Cowboys this, and what the hell was that? Sorry. It's really windy outside. It sounded like a house just blew over or something. Anyway,
If it's not a tornado coming from up down south.
so what are your thoughts? I mean, are we over crushing Dak Prescott and the Cowboys?
I mean, I don't think it's disrespectful to say that Tampa could win this game. I don't think that's disrespectful to the Cowboys. I think it's kind of an evenly
some people are
matched
predicting
game.
the Cowboys to get smoked, and Dak Prescott's going to throw 2 more interceptions. I think a lot of the predictions that we're seeing because we're Eagles fans and that's who we follow, that the Cowboys hate is blinding them on what this Cowboys team is really capable of.
I mean,
wouldn't be surprised. I don't have the Cowboys winning, but I would not be surprised if the Cowboys win the game. How's that sound?
And I think I'm similar to you in that I think it's an evenly matched game. Like it could go either way. But I guess my reasoning for the Bucs winning is Tom Brady because that's the factor. I mean, he is the GOAT. I mean, listen, I get it. Like a lot of people think he's cooked, but I don't personally because I've seen what he can do in situations. Every time I've ever said Tom Brady sucks or he's done or whatever, he's always shown me something that I'm like, geez, how did he do that? Like,
did you give your final score prediction on this game?
I didn't, but I can.
Go for it.
So I'll go Bucs 31-28, and I think it is. I think he comes back late. I think Dallas is winning the game, and Tom Brady, has a last-minute drive.
So I got 35-31 Bucs, same thing. Comeback from Tom Brady. If Tom Brady wins this game, well let's give you 3 scenarios. Tom Brady wins this game, and then loses next week to Philly. Does he retire?
No.
If he loses this game, does he retire?
No.
If he goes on and wins the Super Bowl this year, does he retire?
Yes, I believe he does.
I say no to all. I think he's playing. I think he sacrifices his marriage for football until he has a. I was going to say a Geno Smith season, but Geno Smith had a good season. Until he has a Mark Sanchez like season, or whoever the worst quarterback out there, is. Until he has an awful season, I think he keeps going. I don't know if he stays in Tampa next year, but I think Tom Brady plays for at least another 2 years, in my opinion.
I mean, listen, the guy could be playing at 50 years old. He could.
Brady won me a fantasy championship with his Week 17 performance. Yeah, guess what, Freddie? So I started. I have Jalen Hurts, and I was in the championship game or the playoffs, and I picked up Minshew against the Cowboys for the semifinals, and it worked. Instead of Tom Brady, who was available in my 12-man league. He was on the free agent market in my 12-man league or 12-team league. I chose Gardner Minshew. And then in place of Gardner Minshew in Week 17 in the championship, I put Jalen Hurts back out there. Or no, I left Gardner Minshew out there against the Saints instead of Tom Brady. So I would have won. I lost by 3 points in the championship game. If I go Brady instead of Gardner Minshew, I win the championship. Instead, that slime bucket Peanut, who cheated all year long, took the title from me and the championship belt from me. Just going to remind you, Peanut, as many times as I can, that you cheated. Not really, but he did. And if I would have picked up Brady instead of Gardner Minshew, I would have won that title. So, yeah, good for you, Freddie. But I'm still bitter that I didn't take Tom Brady. So, all right. So, to recap, I got all 6 home teams winning their games this weekend. Did you? I think you had the same thing, right?
I have the Niners, the Jags, the Bills, the Vikings, the Bengals, the Bucs.
Yeah, so all home teams. So that's really rare. It's very odd. If you had to go back to your predictions and say which road team, we all predicted it. A couple of them were close, a couple of them were not close. If you had to predict 1 or 2 that you were the least confident in your predictions in, which ones would they be?
The Chargers and the Giants. I think they are the 2 teams that probably could, change it.
Yeah, I see. I would agree that the Chargers. Because that game's neck and neck and close. But I would say the Chargers and the Cowboys.
Okay.
Are that could wreck that the most. I will say something deep down inside. I won't bet it. I won't predict it. But something deep down inside is telling me. And I won't. I feel like an idiot even saying it live on an air where somebody could call me out. I kind of feel like Seattle could upset San Francisco this weekend.
I mean, listen,
Pete Carroll's experience, can't beat a team 3 times in a season often. Brock Purdy,
Everyone-
starting quarterback.
Everyone is so hyped on the Niners because they've played so good down the stretch. I mean, you nailed it. When they got CMC, they became a different team. Like it just kind of elevated them to that elite level. But you're right. On any given Sunday, anything can happen. And if there is a team that could upset this week, I'm with you, dude. I'm going.
Something inside. There's like this one little spot in my stomach. Maybe it was that taco I ate last night late. I don't know. Maybe that's what's giving me that funny feeling. Or maybe it's Seattle. I don't know. Something tells me. I mean, I would put it at 100 to 1 chance. But something's telling me that there's a chance that we're facing Seattle in Philly next week and not the Buccaneers. Which would be completely insane to think of. But it'd be interesting. All right. We got 10 minutes in this show left. I want to spend a few minutes talking Sixers. Because the Sixers last night, Jason, last home game before they go on a 5-game West Coast trip, which is extremely difficult in the NBA. East Coast teams going to the West Coast for these long trips, it's very tough. Going into last night, the Sixers have won 13 out of their last 16 games. Getting all the city back hype, even turning the most negative Sixers fan myself into a believer. I said yesterday morning on this show, OKC is not the OKC team that we are used to seeing. They're a young upstart team that are winning basketball games, and you can't not take them seriously. And what do the Sixers do last night? They go out and lay a clunker. They lose by 19, but there was a point in that game where they were down 20 plus a few times in that game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, another 37. He's slowly becoming one of the best guards in this league. He's a guy I talked about, Jason, yesterday, that 2 years ago when OKC was selling every player on their team off for draft picks, because they literally have 7 first and second round, they have 7 first round picks over the next 3 years, because they've basically done the Sam Hinkie process, just not called it the process, so they don't get hated on for doing it. I was saying 2 years ago, Daryl Morey, just go give whatever you got. Go get him to add to this team. This was before Tyrese Maxey took off and whatnot. And he's turning into that guy. They literally came out last night, the Sixers, and played like their bags were already on the airplane. Their bags were already packed for their West Coast trip. They just wanted to get home to see their families before getting on this plane. They played with no energy. They had 11 first-half turnovers. They only ended up with 17, but 11 first-half turnovers. They played terrible defense against all these great young guards that Oklahoma City has. And, now I'm seeing people posting all over Twitter, where's all the people that were hyping up the Sixers team? And then they go out and lay a clunker. I'm not sure if you watched the game, but theory-wise, can you chalk this up and find it acceptable in your heart to say they just looked past this team? It was a mistake. The 13-3 over the last 16 games is a bigger picture of what this team is than last night's clunker.
I mean, it's a bigger picture, but I think the problem with this team is still the coach. I don't think I will go off that.
2, 1. I saw the comment coming up over here and hadn't shown up on the screen yet. How do you feel about that? I think Jason's answering your question right now, Rio.
I can't get off of that feeling, because to me, this is a reflection of the coach. As much as, yes, the players play the game, but when you have a team that shits the bed in this manner, in a game where you really know that you need to have your foot on the gas and kind of go into that stretch, as you were just talking about, how important it is, that to me is coaching. That is coaching. The coach's job, the number one job, is to make sure that your team is prepared. That's your job.
Agreed.
Their job is to play, but you need to make sure they're prepared. And this team, when you lose a game like that, you can't say you were prepared. Right. You can't say you were ready. And frankly, it's one of those things, like, if you can't have a killer instinct, that's what's going to hold this team back from going to the next level. Because as good as they have talent-wise, you're only as good as kind of your leader.
Right.
And if you're a leader...
In a 7-game series, the Sixers probably beat OKC in 5 or 6 games. You know what I mean? They're going to win it more times than not, because Oklahoma City is not that talent. They're not that experienced yet. But I think what you can learn from this game It's Doc. Yes, everything you just said about Doc is accurate. And to answer Rio's question, Doc should have been fired 18 months ago, in my opinion. But I also think this is the problem that we've been talking about a long time. So I watched all the second quarter, all the third quarter. I kind of dozed off in and out of that fourth quarter a little bit when I realized way before anybody else that game was over. The real problem was also with Daryl Morey and how he's built this team. We've talked about it for a while. The NBA is different. OKC has got a lot of young, athletic, fast guys that move around, they cut. You look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, their leader, their best guy. He's averaging almost 31 points a game. Scored 37 last night. Only took one three-point shot and made it. What was he doing? He was running, darting, cutting, moving by every player. We've got a bunch of players that are slow on defense, James Harden and stuff like that, Tobias Harris. We've got a lot of unathletic guys, and on offense, we just stand around. We run the pick and roll between James Harden, Joel Embiid, or you just stand around and wait until 3 seconds left and you take a jump shot. That's the problem. This team has none of those athletic players, which is what the NBA is geared towards now. Boston, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, athletic guys. You got somebody like the Greek Freak in Milwaukee. You got Boston, or you got Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons cutting, moving. Brooklyn. You got all these teams with these athletic players, but yet we don't have those athletic players on this team.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that's what DeAnthony Melton was supposed to bring.
He is, but DeAnthony Melton is 6'2". He's a small guard, and he's forced to guard because of the way this team is built. He should be your backup guard, the guy that comes in when Maxey comes off. But a lot of times you have Melton and Maxey on the court at the same time, which means now you got 2 6'2" guys. And in today's NBA, 6'2" is a really small player in today's NBA. So I don't care. Everybody talks about his wingspan. That's great. But when he's forced to guard 6'6", 6'7" guys, it's kind of a mismatch. It's kind of tough for him.
So to your point, would it be a fair assessment to say that this team is top heavy, like that the way that it's constructed, like having Embiid, Harden, and Tobias, like with those contracts, like right, that they don't have a good enough, like they don't have an infusion of those young guys that you're talking about.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at somebody like George Niang. Niang has one thing. He stands at the 3-point line. He's got 3 bricks in each feet. He hustles. He's got heart, but he can't defend the NBA player 2023. This team would have been a great team 20 years ago in the NBA, when the NBA was a different ballgame. 30 years ago in the 90s or early 2000s, they would have been a much more, exciting team. But look, I think there's something to be said that they just looked ahead. They got ahead of themselves a little bit with this West Coast trip coming up. But like you said, that's coaching. That's the coach making sure they're ready. I said it yesterday that it was a must-win game going on a West Coast trip, because 3-2 is the best you can expect on an East Coast team going West Coast. But now they kind of have to go 4-1 and make up that. I just don't know. I just think the hype that I let myself buy into kind of settled down a little bit last night when watching that game, because I have to finally realize that they are who they are. They're a really good team, but they're not a complete enough team to make a realistic run to even the Eastern Conference Finals. And last night proved that again.
So I have a hypothetical for you, because
right,
you're the basketball purist. Obviously, I'm not. I don't know the game near
right,
as much as I probably should. You're Daryl Morey.
Right.
What's one move that you can make a realistic move? What's one realistic move that you could make right now that could kind of change the trajectory of this team right now?
There isn't a realistic move that would change the trajectory. There's a lot of you can insert, you can make a trade for Furkan or whatever and insert a guy here or there. Go get Alec Burks from Detroit, another gunner who we've already had on our bench before. You could do those things, but they're not. There is no needle moving move that you can make unless you're willing to part with Tyrese Maxey. But if you're parting with Tyrese Maxey, that's really setting you back.
So we're screwed.
Yeah. I mean, if you just hypothetically, Bradley Beal's not on the trade market right now, but everybody talked in the offseason trading Maxey to get another star in Bradley Beal. So you're going to move the needle backwards by bringing in Tyrese, or losing Tyrese Maxey, and just bringing it right back to where it was by bringing in Bradley Beal. It doesn't make you that much better. And big picture, it makes you worse. So there is no needle moving move that makes the confidence level skyrocket. I mean, I've talked about a few minor trades here or there you can make, but they're not going to take you from middle of the pack to a top tier team. And that's because of the team that's already been built, where the money's allocated. You have no draft pick. The Sixers cannot trade a draft pick, Jason, until 2029. Well, they could trade the 2029 first-round pick. That's the next pick available. So a young rebuilding team in 2023, they want to trade their stars. I've brought it up before. Sadiq Bey, guy in Detroit, young guy, Villanova product, would look great coming off our bench or starting at the small forward position. They want draft picks. If you offer our last first-round pick in Jaden Springer, who had a great game the other day in mop-up duty, and a first-round pick, do you think Detroit really wants a young player and a draft pick in 2029 when 3 or 4 other teams will be able to offer a 2023 draft pick or a 2024 draft pick? They just can't compete in the trade market right now.
It's just so frustrating because Joel Embiid is having, like, just when you think he can't get better. I mean, he's averaging like 30-some points a game. Like, it's like
30. He's leading the league. It was 33.
Unbelievable. Like, unbelievable. We have this guy, and it's like we are wasting his prime.
He's at 33.5. He's actually fallen to second in the league in scoring. Wow. I wonder who overtook that. I wonder if it was Doncic overtook him. Yeah, Luka Doncic is now up to 34.3 points a game. Yeah, I mean, it's just the Sixers are stuck in the mud, in my opinion. And I think last night kind of reaffirmed that to me, that they're just stuck in the mud. They are who we thought they are, or they are who they are at this point. And no matter how many 13-3 stretches they go on, when it comes down to it, when we get to the playoffs, when we get up against these athletic teams, they're just not going to be able to compete in a best-of-7 series against them. It's frustrating. It is what it is. They get on that West Coast trip. Next week, we'll talk as the West Coast trip goes on. But we're going to wrap up Trending in the AM right there, right here on DSM Media. Thank you to everybody that tuned in. Like, subscribe, follow on all social media platforms, but especially on the YouTube page. I'd greatly appreciate that. We're at 707 subscribers. Let's get us up a few more clicks today. I greatly appreciate that. We'll be back on Monday recapping this weekend. Oh, excuse me. Anyway, we'll wrap this up right there as I'm about to cough and throw up a lung here. Everybody have a great weekend. DSM Media, Trending in the AM. Jason Voorhees, Phil Stifle, you all have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
And Philadelphia has it.
Swing and a